Going on YouTube, Clover is here back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be recapping the Dortmund Regionals. And it just wrapped up a few hours ago, actually. So we're going to take a look at the teams, the usage rates, some initial predictions moving forward. But lots of questions coming into this one, especially after what we saw from Baltimore. If you just think about what we saw in terms of that regional, lots of variants, lots of niche Pokemon got to come out and play. And hence the idea for regulationH that it is the wild west, right? Would that be the same going into Dortmund though? All right, so now that we've had that regional result from Baltimore, would the meta settle down a little bit, and can we see a little bit more centralization as far as like what are truly the top teams and the top Pokemon and the best archetypes to use right now? Okay, so we're gonna recap all of that, but first, as always, we always like to look at usage rate and see, day one and day two. And then from there, we'll also take a look at the teams itself and maybe some niche Pokemon that make all the difference on certain teams and then also moving forward. All right, so without further ado, let's take a look. All right, so first, let's take a look at what day one usage looks like. And we have Incineroar back again at number 1. And many people didn't really expect that, but because, Incin was quote-unquote on the decline. I say that loosely because of what is available right now, especially King Gambit. But here we are again looking at Incin at the top of the margin over here. And you have Rillaboom just a close second over here with Gholdengo in third place. So I did expect Rillaboom and Gholdengo to be top 3 usage. And I thought Incin would be at number 3. I didn't expect it to be number 1 heading into day 1. But that is what we see here. As expected, at the end of the day, even though there's like so much King Gambit and Annihilape running around with the fight, Incin's still a really good Pokemon. It's still a really good answer to a lot of different things, and it just has a lot going for it. Fake out pressure, parting shot, damage mitigation, and all that things. You can sit in front of Gholdengo because you are a fire dark type, so you have that going for you. And then at the same time, safety goggles kind of puts pressure on the Amoonguss stuff, which you see there at number 4. You're good against Rillaboom and Gholdengo just with the fire type damage, right? So it still has things going for it. And then at the same time, from here, Gholdengo still putting on tons of pressure in the meta. Choice Spec set, Nasty Plot, Life Orb sets, still very, very strong. Amoonguss, of course, still very good. We'll talk about redirection in a second because there was a lot of redirectors that we could see being used now in Dortmund, but still Amoonguss is number 1 in terms of that. Then we have Primarina and King Gambit to follow. Then Sneasler now is starting to, rise even further. Okay, this thing is, continuing to increase in usage rate, and with good reason, right? And we can see that in some of the teams that we're going to show you. But of course, this thing now has its own archetype in itself. We'll call it like Sneasler Balance, Sneasler Offense, whatever nickname you want to call it. But Sneasler is, in fact, a very, very good Pokemon right now. Then you have the typical Archaludon Rain stuff. And remember, heading into Baltimore, this was the archetype to beat. And in some cases, it has dipped a little bit, but it is still very, very strong. Still top 5, without a doubt. Then look at this. You have Garchomp creeping into the top 12 here, along with the Porygon and the Electabuzz here. This Electabuzz is a benefactor with the King Gambit. So you'll see like Sneasler, Electabuzz, King Gambit stuff for sure. And by default, Electabuzz enters the top 12, right? You have a bulky Follow Me user. You got Vital Spirit, so you have Amoonguss immunity in that sense. You can even give it Electro Web and Taunt for a little bit of speed control and disruption, right? And then of course, look at Garchomp over here. So why would Garchomp enter, the top 12? Well, take a look at this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Pokemon here. Half of the day 1 usage, right? In terms of the top 12 are weak to ground types, and Garchomp is always, the premier ground dragon user. It's faster than base 100s, which is important, right? So you can put pressure that way. And then over here, Porygon just coming in. Again, the Porygon-2 Balance, I would say, with Incineroar, Porygon, Gholdengo, and the P2, that's like your premier 4 heading into Dortmund. So, would that be the case again at the end, right? So, nice to see the P2 here. And again, you can do stuff like Terra Flying, Terra Blast, Terra Fighting. Terra Blast was the most used. And then you can even have the niche Terra Ground, which is what we showcased in our previous video when we showcased our team in that video. But again, lots of things you can do with the P2. And, Terra Ghost is always the thing. You can whip the fighting type damage. And then at the same time, set Trick Room, click Recover. You can play the timer if you like, if you want to play the P2 that way. But either way, You know, not too many surprises here. I am surprised, you know, with the Electabuzz entering a top 12. I thought maybe something else could do that, but the other 11, you know, this is totally fine. Even Garchomp entering top 12, I'm not too surprised about. Then as we go into day 2, okay, oops, that's still day 1. But as we go into day 2, look at this. Okay, now we have a little bit of interesting ideas. So now you have Rillaboom back at number 1, 41%. So, you know, decent conversion rate. Then look at this. King Gambit taking Goldengo's spot as the number 2 steel type, switching over places there, right? So now King Gambit, 38%. You went from 29 to 38. That's very, very high. And then now Sneasler is number 3. Look at this. And still Electabuzz and Garchomp are still down there. But now Sneasler going up to 37%, 10+% usage. There's a ton of Sneasler teams right now. And these 3 are on the same team. So as expected, then you have Instant dropping to number 4. But ironically enough, even though it did drop, like it's still, you know, within the same percentage, like 32.7 versus 33%. That's still like breaking even almost in terms of conversion rate. Goldengo getting a bit of a drop there. And as expected, look, you've got King Gambit clicking Sucker Punch and Kowtow Cleave against this thing. You know, makes a lot of sense. And still Instant is quite good against a lot of these Pokemon. You can intimidate the Sneasler, you can intimidate the Rillaboom, you can put pressure into the King Gambit. You know, and of course the King Gambit, you're going to get a Defiant Boost. But other than that, you're still putting up a ton of pressure against a lot of these top 6 mons here. Amoonguss. Now look at this. Now we have Dragapult entering. And if you remember, if you watched our collaboration video with Justin Tang and Shidleon Tang, what did Justin say? He did expect Dragapult to do very well. And look at this. It is now the most used dragon in terms of usage. 3 dragon types, by the way, in terms of usage here. Where is Dragonite? That thing was supposed to also crack the top 12. I thought it would, but here we are with these 3 instead. But again, Dragapult, like we always say, if you are the faster dragon, you will more times than not win. So tons of pressure here with Dragon Darts, Choice Band set, of course, Outrage, Terra Blast, Terra Ghost, lots of different ways to use it. No Pelipper, but you still have Archaludon here. So not too much weather, you know, in terms of that regard. Like your weather is coming from manual setters, like Whimsicott clicking Sunny Day, Murkrow clicking something. So being able to change it on another weather switching in is important, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Basculegion, I did not expect this to crack the top 12. Okay, I got to be honest. But at the same time, it's just so good on these Archaludon teams. Last Respects as a cleanup just does so much damage. The band sets, you know, with the wave crashes and whatnot, very, very strong at the end of the day. So again, this is something else you want to intimidate too, right? So, but you know, honestly, I'm not surprised at any of this. You know, when I look at day 2 versus like day 1, you know, Sneasler climbing into top 3 is kind of funny, but hey, it is that Pokemon right now. If you had to bring a team to regional, just bring Sneasler stuff. And Sneasler, Dragapult, by the way, are a very, very good combination between the 2. They cover for each other's a lot of weaknesses, and they're both very, very fast too. So you have 2 strong, fast physical users on the team. You can also put coaching on the Sneasler to coach the King Gambit, coach the Rillaboom, coach the Dragapult too, right? So you can even see that there's some variance in some of the Sneasler sets. But yeah, overall, I'm not surprised at any of this stuff. So let's see, and let's take a look at the teams from here on out. Okay, so now let's head into the LabMouse website. Let's take a look at the results here, and let's look at some team composition-wise. So let's look at 3-man core teams. So look at this. Like, we've got Sneasler, Rillaboom, and King Gambit over here. And as expected, that is what you saw in, you know, in terms of day 2 usage. So that's pretty standard there. Then you still have like, but it's basically a bunch of Sneasler cores, right? So Buzz, Gambit, Rillaboom, Buzz, Gambit, Sneasler. So that's expected. But then as you click into 4, it's still like more Sneasler stuff, right? So the Sneasler, Rillaboom, Gambit, Primarina, right? And then, or Sneasler, Rillaboom, Primarina, and then Electabuzz at the same time, along with Gambit coming into that slot. So it's a lot of Sneasler stuff. But then look at this. Then you have the instant P2 Goldengo balance stuff, right? So coming in from Baltimore, this was the expected 4 that would, you know, predicted to be like the dominant 4. But, you know, we have it as like more or less the second type of archetype in terms of 4-man compositions coming into this, right? Then you have the Archaludon, you know, the Archaludon, Pelipper, Amoonguss, Basculegion stuff. So that's coming in at 3rd place over there, more or less. And then, you know, again, still more instant P2 balance. Dragapult, Sneasler, Gambit, Rillaboom, that's another good 4-man core that you can also consider. It's basically some variants of Sneasler and P2 balance. That's really what we're looking at right now in terms of 4 or 5 man cores over here. Yeah, see, look, I click this and it's pretty much the same thing. So what are your two dominant core teams right now? P2 Balance or Sneasler Offense, right? And that's what we're at right now. And then Archaludon Rain, coming in at 3rd place over here, right? So that's what I would, that's what I got out of this in terms of like the top 3 team compositions right now. It's just those 3, okay? But that being said, I think there's more room for other archetypes to do well, and they did do well. It's just in terms of, common usage rate, what are the 3 best, right? And I think those 3 are at the top of the list. Anyway, let's take a look at the 1st place team here. So from Davide, so congratulations to him. So for winning the whole thing. Look at this team. So you have the double Dragon Core idea with Garchomp Hydreigon idea. So I want to say something about this for a second before I look at Davide's team. Let's go back to regulationH actually, okay? I want to build you just a very, very quick team. Not like fully fledged builded, but just to show you what happens here. So look, we've got Hydreigon. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Then we have Garchomp. This was the team used back in regulationH, towards the late end of regulationH. And it was one of the squads I thought you would see a lot more of back in Baltimore, but or even at the start of the regulationH format, but we did not see it. Then after this, you have Murkrow and Gholdengo, right? And then from here, the Maushold Annihilape stuff, okay? So this was like one of the premier teams that I thought you would see, at the start of regulationH. And I'm sure it was tested at least once or twice, but since then, not a whole lot. We've replaced Murkrow with stuff like, Talonflame, and then we've had Primarina come into the fray. But now look at this. So look at Davide's team, and then look at this team that we just recreated that was like late regulationH. If you just take off the Murkrow and add the Whimsicott, okay, and then you take out the Maushold and add the Clefable, another redirector, you basically have his team, which is quite interesting in itself. So it almost looks like they took that late regulationH team and modernized it for regulationH, and this is what we have, okay? Which, again, makes sense because, again, these 2 options were not available to us back in regulationH, and now they are in regulationH, so it just makes sense to maybe update that team a little bit and just create this. So shout outs to Davide. I don't know if that's actually what they did, but hey, that's what it looked like to me when I was looking at this originally. Okay, but anyway, back to his team. So look at this. You've got Specs Hydreigon instead of the Crit set or even the Assault Vest set. We have Specs with Snarl and then Life Orb Chomp with Annihilape at Defiant Mon, right? So usually you would see something like King Gambit here, but instead we'll put the Annihilape and then we'll still keep Gholdengo over here, right? So I like this a lot, and you still have the bulky redirector for Clefable. And look at this. So it's Life Orb Chop. You're doing a lot of damage. You have Goggles Annihilape. You can get around the Amoonguss stuff and even Sinistra to an extent and just, ignore that. So basically Amoonguss doesn't even look good here because you have 1, 2, 3 Amoonguss immunities more or less. And then look at this. The Clefable, it's Misty Terrain. That is crazy because if you think about it, you're not Terrify or Annihilape. So you're susceptible to, Talonflame Burns, for example, or maybe the Sneasler stuff. With Dire Claw, I guess they were angry about Dire Claw stuff. So, like, you know what? Let's go Misty Terrain, and let's not have to worry about it. And then from here, again, Terra Steel Garchomp, which is pretty solid. You can Earthquake next to a Hydreigon because of Levitate. Whimsicott here with Sunny Day. Change Archaludon's Rain upside its head. This is where most of your weather is coming from these days right now, at least from Dortmund. Results are saying, you don't really have, like, Tyrannitars or Torkoal switching in. It's just mostly like Pelipper stuff at the moment. There were some Tyrannitars, but again, Sunny Day Whimsicott looking pretty good here in this slot. Unaware Clefable, of course, just ignoring Annihilape boost, ignoring the Dondozo stuff, and then just having the option for Terra Water against the Steel weakness is very, very good. So at the same time, again, you can put on some damage and put on some pressure with Moonblast, which is something that the other redirectors can't quite do, except Magmar, for example, with Overheat. But Magmar doesn't get Unaware, so I like this a lot. And then, of course, the Metal Coat Nasty Plot Gholdengo set, so you could just do something like this. So you have some speed control here, you have some setup, which is quite nice. And then at the end of the day, you have strong offense coming from Life Orb Chomp and Choice Specs, Hydreigon here. So I like this, and you got to see how strong the Clefable was in the finals against Maddie Morgan's team, which we're gonna take a look at right here. This is like a new kind of P2 balance, more or less, somewhat new. You still have the Amoonguss P2 Incineroar core, right? Then you add Gholdengo to this, and just like Davide's team. It's an aggressive item with nasty plot setup. Usually this ground slot is an Ursaluna, but Maddie says, I'm going to go with Garchomp over here, and I'm going to still add Sneasler to this, and I'm going to go with coaching. So not only can I coach this Garchomp, which is kind of funny, I can also coach the Incineroar, and if I have to, I can also coach the Porygon. So if it gets an attack boost, then I can start going for, you know, physical Terra Grounds, Terra Blast, which we did use in our other video. Remember that. The video before this, we were using a lot of Porygon, Terra Ground, so we came up with this, you know, a while ago. But nice to see Maddie Morgan bring it to fruition here in the finals. But look at this Among Us set. No Pollen, no Pollen Puff anymore. They're going a lot more Sludge Bomb stuff now because they want to nuke the Primarinas and, you know, the Rillaboos for that matter. And, you know, I understand it, but Pollen Puff is so good, you know, in terms of healing. But again, I understand the reasoning behind it. You still want Protect. You can't really have 4 moves here. But the one thing that Among Us is missing is, again, there is no Clear Smog here. And what they're saying is, look, Dondozo is down in usage. We don't expect it to do that well. So let's give up the Clear Smog and let's, you know, just put Protect over here. And, you know, again, makes sense. Instant now putting back the Flare Blitz these days more or less and giving up the other taunt move or even the Will-O-Wisp, but you still have Parting Shot, right? Goggles Instant is still very, very good. So honestly, this is still like a very, very good team. Like you have a fast mode to the team and you still have the slow mode to the team, which is pretty good in itself. And don't forget, coaching gives you defense boost. So if you have to give yourself a defense boost, you can definitely do that. And we did see that a little bit, right? So congrats to Maddie. This is a pretty cool team. Then as we go down, then we see like a bunch of Sneasler stuff, right? So look at Nicolo's team. Again, you know, just very standard stuff. Like instead of, you still have Sneasler, Buzz, Gambit, Rillaboom. Then you have Pult here instead of something like Salamence, which is what the Tangs did. But this is still like very, very good. Like if you had to do like a Sneasler team right now, just use something like this. You could do the Salamence stuff at the end of the day, which is really, really cool. You can also do Magmar instead of the Electabuzz. And now what that does is it gives you a Fire Word or Grass Core. It gives you access to Will-O-Wisp, okay? And you get to nuke something with Overheat if you have to, which is pretty convenient in itself. So you can even do something like this if you have to. But I'm not going to cover this team yet. Where's that called? It's Jack Clark's team. It's my favorite team from this top 8, but we're going to get to that in another point in the video. And then this was the team that, you know, you were expected to see tons of, right? That this P2 balance stuff with the Flamigo Scrappy idea. Again, with Scrappy being so good, not caring about Intimidate, able to hit Ghost types, doing tons of damage, especially with the Sash, it gets annoying. You can outspeed the Modest Goldengos, which is kind of funny. But here we have Earthquake rather than the substitute set. That's still fine because you have a P2 Terra Flying and you have another flying type in Flamigo. There's the expected Among Us set with Clear Smog here. And then you still have Metal Coat Goldengo just doing tons of damage, right? So that's the team that we thought we would see. And then Fevzi, of course, you know, someone that we've known for a bit. Again, he's playing the Archaludon Rain stuff, you know, with the Maushold core. And he's going with the Grimmsnarl Screens idea, which you've seen and used before. But the 2 points here that I've seen, first of all, it's Life Orb Pelipper, okay? Not Sash, not Covert Cloak. It is Life Orb Pelipper. So this is going to do a lot of damage, which is very nice. And you have the screens and the friend guard. So, you know, you're giving up the Sash, but you have a lot of bulk to protect you. So let's capitalize on that. Let's forgo the Sash and let's go Life Orb. Let's do more damage. And that's exactly what Fevzi is doing here. And you still have the bulk up stuff. So bulk up behind screens and redirection is very, very good. Then the Sinistra also makes sense here. Again, you know, just behind screens, you're taking minimal damage. You can just heal yourself over time. You can set Trick Room, so you have Tail Room available. And the other point, besides the Life Orb Pelipper, is that this is Snarl Archaludon, which I did expect to see a little bit more after Baltimore because Snarl's a great tech move. There's a lot of special attackers in this format. Okay, so now what you're saying is, look, I've got screens, you know, to reduce damage. I've got my defense boost because of stamina. Let me get some special attack damage reduction on top of that by going for Snarl. And now all of a sudden, the Archaludon becomes really difficult to remove, especially when you got Sinistra and Maushold supporting it. So this is a very, very bulky team, and it's hard to break through, and it's no question as to far as like how Fevzi was able to do well, right? You're just capitalizing on all this bulk and all this redirection support and healing, that none of your options are dying. Look, even the leftovers in Annihilape is just getting recovery every other turn. So I do like that in itself. But anyway, so that's our top 8 coverage. Let's look at, you know, the archetypes as a whole, and let's see where we got. So I want to look more into this trio with Sneasler, Gambit, and Drifblim here, because you can go lots of different directions, you know, after this. Okay, you can pick a dragon type. Maybe you don't even pick a dragon type. You can still do fire, water, grass stuff depending on what your fire, water, grass cores are. You could choose either Magmar or Electabuzz. Lots of different options here. You could even do like the Psy Spam variant, right? You don't even have to use Drifblim here. You could even do Psy Spam Sneasler that wants to just go with the Psychic Seeds and go Unburden. So lots of different options. So what I want to do is pop back in here, filter the Sneasler option in the Lab Mouse website, and let's take a look at this. So we already saw like Nicolo's team. So let's look at some other variants over here. Yeah, like this is the Salamence variant. I think this is the Tank team. But look at this. Instead of Electabuzz, we have Magmar here, which we've already spoken about. So you get your Fire, Water, Grass core going here, and you still get Dragon, Fairy, Steel stuff, right? So I like this. And again, you can even slot in Dragapult into something like that. So that's okay. Then you have something like this, where you have double dragons, okay, with Dragapult and Archaludon, which we'll speak about in a second. But this is the Unburdened Sneasler with the Grassy Seed stuff. So look at this, Rock Slide Sneasler. There's your tech. Okay, that's pretty good, you know, against something like Talonflame, right, where you get to just outspeed it. But at the end of the day, Talonflame got Gale Wings, so, you know, but that doesn't kill the Sneasler because you have the defense boost, so that's interesting in itself. But other than that, look, you've got Vivillon here. There's so much Vivillon, okay, in this tour, and we'll speak about that in a second. But this is another way that you can even consider, and this one doesn't use the Snarl stuff from the Archaludon. You still have Flash Cannon, which, you know, is really good against fairies, but the problem is there's not much fairies running around right now, so I think you can still click D-Pulse. At the end of the day, it's still like very, very strong. But as you go down here, here's the Psy Spam variant, right? So this almost looks like the team that we had a little bit, but you know, at the same time, still very different. First of all, Adaptability, Basculegion. Okay, this is really cool. Look at this. Wave Crash, Flip Turn, Last Switch, Terra Blast, Terra Grass. Okay, the Terra Blast, Terra Grass is really, really useful. And then the Expanding Force and DD stuff, you know, with the Terra Fighting, Terra Blast is also really good against Gambit. And then you have the Delphox carryover from Baltimore, right? So you still get Expanding Force from your Delphox. And this is the one thing that Hisuian Typhlosion cannot do, which is, again, click Expanding Force. So you are faster, you got access to Expanding Force, and you have a decent single target move with Flamethrower, with Life Orb. So Delphox still has some advantages over the Hisuian Typhlosion here. You're not completely reliant on Eruption. You can still do other stuff at the same time. And then you have the Wide Lens Population Bomb Nuke Maushold with Technician here, right? So you got a lot of stuff going on here. So I like this team a lot. But as you go down, you start to see some variants in some of the Sneasler cores. Like this one at A3 has this Hisuian Zoroark with Curse. What is this? You have Curse, Hisuian Zoroark. Oh my goodness. And then Bella Malice, Will-O-Wisp. This is a slot right here. So he says, look, I'm going to take this 5, which is pretty standard, and then I'm going to put in Hisuian Zoroark, and let's play some mind games. My goodness. He chose violence. Then we see the Dondozo Dragapult stuff. So like, I'm going to click Jones here and Carlos here because they both have the same team. Let me click Mr. Garcia's team here for a second. So it's Dondozo, but no Tatsugiri, which again was a thing in this tour. We'll speak about that in another time step in the video. But look at this. It's a Yawn Fissure Dondozo. Okay, it's Protect, Follow Me, Taunt, and Heat Wave Magmar instead of Overheat. So I respect the idea there. And then after that, it's just pretty standard stuff with, you know, Boom, Gambit, and Pult, right? But the key thing here is that this is Unaware Dondozo. Okay, this is Unaware Dondozo with Yawn Liquidation Fissure. Okay, so that's interesting in itself, right? This is almost like your Unaware Clefable, but we have an Unaware Dondozo that's just clicking Yawn and forcing, you know, reposition things. So that may be a new evolution of Dondozo, which we'll speak a little bit more, you know, about in the video. But as we go down a little bit more, now we get to see some Dragonite play here. So look at this. So we see D-Knight as another Dragon option instead of Salamence and Dragapult, which is still like totally fine. Then we have this one. I like this one too. So, you know, usually you're seeing right now Chomp, D-Knight, Amoonguss, Gambit. This is like paired with Ninetales and something else. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was Paul Chua's team. But now what you're doing is, my light was flickering over there for a second. But now what you're saying is, look, we're going to go coaching and we're going to coach these 3 homies, okay? D-Knight, Chomp, and King Gambit, and we're going to do so much damage with these guys. And then we still have Redirection from Amoonguss. We still have Primarina for our Dondozo check. We can Haze away Intimidates away from both of these guys, okay? So that's always really, really nice. And this is another way to use Sneasler that it wasn't used in Baltimore in terms of that. Then we have this one with no dragon, right? Then you have Volcarona stuff. This is another one of the Sneasler teams that we built. We built like 5 of them in our team building video. But this is another one, right? Terra Dragon Sneasler, that. And then look at this. Grassy Seed, Unburdened, but Dire Claw, Close Combat, Coaching Sneasler. So again, coaching coming into play here, but you got Rillaboom and Gambit, no dragon here. You still have Quiver Dance, Volcarona at the end of the day. So this is still, you know, very, very solid. But overall, Sneasler Balance, there's so many different ways to use it in terms of how you want to play it. Like even this one, look at this. This one has a Typhlosion here with the Decidueye, Pulse Sneasler. This looks like our rental almost, right? Is this our rental? I think it is. But it may have been like maybe some variation of it, maybe different EV spreads. But at the end of the day, this is still like very, very good. But at the end of the day, like I'm saying, lots of different ways to use Sneasler Balance. It just all depends on what you want in terms of your core pieces. But it is here to stay. I also want to take a peek at double dragon cores because I think you're going to see a little bit more of this moving forward. So, you know, we've already seen Garchomp and Dragonite. Okay, this was like from Paul Chua's team from the Baltimore Regionals, right, in the finals. So good synergy here with Earthquake and Dragonite because, again, Dragonite is a flying type. You can click Earthquake next to that. Then you can also do the Hydreigon stuff, which we saw in the finals here, where you can click Earthquake next to Hydreigon. This was like an older idea back in Regulation A when these two were on the same team, right? So that's pretty much expected there. But then you can also consider Archaludon to an extent, right? Because again, Archaludon with the popular choice being Terra Grass and the Assault Vest set, you can technically still Earthquake next to Archaludon, give yourself a +1 boost. You're not really taking that much damage from Earthquake because it's a spread move, and then you have all this defense anyway. So you can always just do that, and then just, you know, basically it's a self-proc for your body press, and then just start sweeping from there. You can even do that. I've also seen Dragapult, okay, along with either the Archaludon or the Hydreigon. Why is that? Because think about what these two are weak to. They're both weak to fighting types, right? And, you know, if you just pivot in a ghost type, that fighting type attack does no damage. So in essence, that's pretty good. And then look, what is Dragapult weak to? You're weak to another ghost type or another dark type, which you can easily switch into your Archaludon at the end of the day because, you know, you get to resist both types of coverage, right? So we saw this not only in Dortmund, but there was another regional going on at the same time, which I'm going to preview in a second. But looking at Dortmund, we saw tons of Garchomp Dragonite stuff. And that's, again, of course, of Mr. Paul Chua and what he was able to do back then. So people have been capitalizing off of that. But look at this. Even though this wasn't Terra Grass, actually it is. You can still give yourself a defense boost in that sense. But remember, this is sturdy Archaludon, okay? So you have to be aware of what Daniel's doing here. So don't do it like that. But if you go down a little bit more, again, it's still like more Garchomp Dragonite stuff. But if I preview the Joinville regionals, right? Again, this was a regional that was going on at the same time. If anything, one day later, we got to see this idea with these double dragons, besides the Garchomp Hydreigon stuff. I'm sorry, Garchomp the Dragonite stuff. Look at this. Here's what I was talking about. Garchomp, Terra Grass, Stamina, Archaludon. That's the way you want to do it, okay? You know, Daniel, great job, but I like this idea a little bit better because look at this. You get to do a lot of damage with Earthquake on the opponent, and then you get to give yourself body press boost with this Terra Grass stuff, right? Again, you have to commit your Terra for that, but at the same time, it's kind of worth it because, you know, you're going to do a lot of damage, you know, just all things considered. So the interesting thing is this is Poliwrath over here. So, you know, instead of going the Basculegion, we have a Poliwrath over here, which is, again, it's all about regulationH, the Wild Wild West. We'll talk about Poliwrath in another video. But then as we go down here, look at this. Again, 7-3 result from Italo. Look at this, Dragapult and Hydreigon, again, here on the same team. Because, again, they have some pretty good synergy with each other. So, all in all, I think you can definitely take advantage of double dragons, this type of format. So, we'll see what happens moving forward because we got another regional in 2 weeks. All right, so now let's look at the P2 balance idea heading into Dortmund. So, this was like the Premier 5. You had the P2, you had the Instant Amoonguss core, then you had your sweepers with Ursaluna and Goldengo. And this last slot was always up for grabs. The latest development was to put in a Flamigo. You can also still go another direction and just put in Tyranitar here for weather control. And those were like the two most popular renditions right now. But as a result of what has transpired over the last recent weeks, there has been some updates to this kind of archetype. So let's take a look at that. So again, we already talked about Manny Morgan's team. So to add a Sneasler here and to opt for a faster ground type like Garchomp just means you have a fast mode to the team. Okay, and then you have coaching over here to be able to boost the Chomp and even the P2 to an extent, and to a certain degree the Incineroar, right? So you can always just go in that route. But again, you can still consider yourself strong by just going with the Flamigo idea. And this is always going to be good no matter what kind of direction you want to take with the team. Then after this, again, you get to see the Tyranitar stuff is still like very, very good. So you can opt for that in that kind of slot. And I think that's also going to get the job done. There's some other niche Pokemon on this that I want to cover towards the later part of the video. But at the same time, it's still like pretty good. This one's also a little bit unique. This one has like screen support with Volcarona and the Annihilape stuff. I don't know about this, but I can still see, this still doing like relatively well at the end of the day. But all in all, this P2 balance idea, I think you'll see a little bit more Sneasler on it moving forward. Because again, good fighting coverage. You might even see like Dragon Ball to an extent, right? So I still think, Pult, with stuff like P2 is still like going to be strong. But we'll have to see what happens moving forward if the Flamigo stuff is still very, very good. The Archaludon Rain R-type. Okay, we knew what this thing was going to do, or what it was supposed to do at Baltimore. It did end up winning. Now, what would that look like in Dortmund? Well, first of all, there was only one in the top 8, so that's already like a telling story, which was Fevzi's team over here with the screens variants. So you can definitely play it like this, right? Like Archaludon screens, with the Maushold babe. You can definitely consider that. But just outside the top 8, you had number 11 over here. You still had Depult and the Archaludon over here, which I think I missed when I was doing my Double Dragon course. Oops, my bad. But you had this. Again, we mentioned this already, right? So this was already like another way to use it. And again, that one did not even use Pelipper. But as you scroll down, then you get to see like some other standard stuff. Like, look at this. Like this was like one of the first teams with Archaludon, with the Instant Amoonguss Basculegion back engine with Kingambit. Like this is also like very, very solid and standard. Like, and then the Scarf idea versus the band. So now you can outspeed everything, not be completely reliant on the rain stuff. So that's another way that you can do it. Okay. Then as you go down even more, look at this. Now you start adding stuff like Electabuzz over here, with the E-Web support, just to help you in the Tailwind mirror in that regard. So that's another way to consider it. And look at this. This is leftovers Archaludon with Protect. So it's, Electroshot, Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon. So that's also something to look at. And then the Chomp idea, like we saw from Daniel, like again, how about this one? Clefairy with Blood Moon Ursaluna. Look at this, variance. Again, Pelipper, Archaludon, Basculegion is pretty common. Then you have Ursaluna, Decidueye, and Clefairy. Look at this. Okay, you got redirection support. Again, this is going to help you maybe in those Trick Room matchups, with the Friend Guard. And then just triple arrows, Leaf Blade, Brave Bird, Decidueye. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is we got some tech stuff going on here. So I like this. This is pretty cool from Thomas Schultz. Some nice little variants there. And then, when you start looking at stuff like this, look at this. How about Politoed instead of the Pelipper? Because again, the one thing that Politoed can give you that Pelipper cannot, two things actually. One is Perish Song, and two, you could do Haze, right? And look there's a Gothitelle over here, and you still have a Ghost type. So, this type of idea still makes sense. I don't know if you need Incin, but again, you still have, pivot potential with Parting Shot. Rillaboom doesn't have the U-turn, but that's still okay. You can definitely do some stuff with that. So I think it's a little bit harder of a thing to pilot, but it still works. Then look at this. You have Espather over here, clicking Lumina crashes. That's going to help like these guys do a little bit more damage, as well. So, again, no Pelipper here, but still some variance in that sense. And then, just the straight up double steel core with Amoonguss. With Goldengo and Archaludon is still also going to be solid. So again, another one of those first teams that we saw in the beginning of H is still like very strong even here. But how about this one? We still have Espeon over here. Like again, Regulation H, Wild Wild West. This is like Size Spam Rain, I guess you can call it like this. I want to feature this team. This is actually a pretty cool team. Like fast expanding force. And again with Gallade over here, the Trick Room mode. So that's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, there's still some standard cores that still work with Archaludon for that matter. So, you know, it's still a very, very strong archetype, still top 3. Okay, so if you had to bring something to your next turn, Archaludon Rain is the way to go. Dondozo's stuff was also something to keep an eye on because, again, people are always prepared for it with the haze, the clear smogs, and now it was interesting to see how people would use it. And the answer was to use it without the Tatsugiri and start coming up with other sets with Dondozo. So this one here is the Yawn Fissure set, which we kind of showed a little bit earlier in the video. But again, just forcing things to click or switch, or otherwise go to sleep, is important. And then you can always click Fissure here. If you're in a bad spot, you need to just kill something. That's also pretty cool. Then you have your Water Stab move. And again, you still have Unaware, right? So you get to ignore stuff when you're taking damage. And then this one was the Curse set. I think it was Pato that was using this one, right? So forgo the Protect, but then you add Curse here, and now you're going to start dealing some damage. So that was interesting in essence, because now if we go here in Dortmund, and we can see a lot of teams did not even have Tatsugiri if you were to use Dondozo. So if we look at Jones' team, which we showed earlier, this was that Yawn Liquidation Fissure set. So you still have your Fire Water Grass Core here with the Sneasler, Dragapult stuff. We got to see this earlier. But then as you go down, you got to see more of that, but still a little bit of variance. So look at Jorge's team over here. Again, Yawn, Wave Crash, Fissure instead of the Liquidation, but still the same kinds of idea that you're getting out of Dondozo. Then you still had this one Dondozo Tatsugiri within 33rd place, right? So this was still like pretty standard. You could still play like this along with Glomora. That's my favorite way of using Dondozo Tatsugiri. But it was just interesting to see how people were using it without Tatsugiri. And then here's Pato set here with the Wave Crash, the Yawn, the Fissure, the Curse. And again, it's all part of the Sneasler balance idea. So again, foregoing the Primarina as far as your water type is concerned, just using Dondozo without Tatsugiri. So this separation of a patented duo was interesting to see in essence. And maybe people do it more moving forward, but look at it. It's all part of the Sneasler balance idea where you're getting some variance instead of the Primarina. So we'll have to see if that's still the case moving forward. So another separation that you can also kind of look at besides the Dondozo Tatsugiri stuff is, can you play Maushold and Annihilape separately? Is that going to get you results? And the answer is yes. I want to show you a tweet that I saw earlier from Santino. I think it's kind of funny. He's half joking, but there is some truth to it. Turns out the secret to making Maushold and Annihilape good was just to split them up. So yeah, he's kind of right in essence, because there was enough teams where you could play one without the other and still do very, very well. You know, hence what we saw in the finals, right? So from Davide's team, again, using the Clefable instead of the Maushold. So you can still play that way, and it still like works fine, because again, you value the Clefable in what it can do with Unaware versus the Maushold, which does not have Unaware. But still, that's not the only way to use Annihilape without the Maushold, right? So let's go through some examples here, because there were some teams that did not need it. So for example, right here, from 37th place, 8-3 result from Jost. Look at this. It's the Choice Scarf Annihilape set with Shadow Claw, Close Combat, Coaching, Final Gambit. You got a lot of coaching targets over here. So this is another way that you can consider using the Annihilape, where you want the Defiant on you, because, you know, these things don't want to get intimidated. Then you have also King Gambit with Defiant. So you have double Defiant usage over here. So that's one way to look at it. Then how about this one for a little bit of hyper offense from Mike's team? Again, Final Gambit Assault Vest set. You can still use it like this, you know, with the Whimsicott, Typhlosion, Ursaluna, Bloodmoon. So this is another cool team that you can also consider. But it just makes you think, can we play one without the other? And yes, there were enough teams. Like here's another one, right? Nick Holmler, 7-4. Look at this. This one is the setup Annihilape with Rage Fist, Bulk Up stuff, Drain Punch. Again, you still have beat up coming from the Whimsicott rather than the Maushold. And then you have the Sidroid, Arcanine, Overcoat. So like, again, you still have this like Fire, Water, Grass Core going on over here. But Hydreigon here with the Assault Vest set is something that, you know, I liked, because I think this is still a very, very good set for Hydreigon. It just depends on who wants to run it and what kind of team can you really use it on. But that's another way to really consider the Annihilape. Then you have this one right here with the Frostas. What is going on over here? Icy Wind, Haze. Okay, fine. Still more Final Gambit stuff, right, with coaching ideas. So, you know, it is most commonly due to the Scarf coaching stuff, but I want to see what people do with the Annihilape moving forward without the Maushold. I still think it's good, but obviously right now the pairing together is still like very, very strong. All right, at this point in the video, I want to take a look at some niche Pokemon that came out to play and did very, very well. Because on this channel, we love it when niche Pokemon can do their job and shine where and normally in places they can't shine because they're not put on the right team. And if you do put them on the right team, they make all the difference. They can win you a tournament, right? So start things off. I want to look at Kilowattrel over here because originally in the beginning of the format, we had this thing in the C tier because of competitive and Tailwind, and we thought maybe it could do something, and then nobody was really using it. So, you know, we put that into the D tier, but I still secretly believe that it could do something. It just needed to be put on the right kind of team here. And we got to see a couple results here. So 8-3 over here with Kilowattrel right here from Juan. So look at this. Competitive, Thunderbolt, Tailwind, that we knew, Air Slash, and then Protect, right? First of all, let's look at Kilowattrel's stats here, you know, just so that you can see, you know, and compare with something like a Talonflame here, because here's the difference between Talonflame and Kilowattrel. Kilowattrel's base speed is 125, Talonflame is 126. You have Gale Wings versus something like Competitive, right? And even Wind Power to an extent, but like Talonflame's damage sometimes is just not that great. Whereas Kilowattrel, this thing can actually do some damage. 105 base power. Okay, that's still nothing to slouch over. Okay, this thing can still hurt you. And, you know, it kind of does do some damage here. So, and again, competitive here with Garchomp. And then this is Wheezing stuff with Instant. Oh, this looks like a tough team to pilot. But again, he looks... but again, Juan is a really good player, so I'm not going to doubt him. But again, this is another sense where like, okay, cool. I've got Kilowattrel with competitive. I don't need the King Gambit. I've got the Corviknight as my steel type already. What is something else that I can put that gets competitive? Few options. You can do the Kilowattrel, right? Because this gets Tailwind, whereas some of the other options cannot. He's one of the few that can just do Tailwind and then competitive at the same time. I don't know another Pokemon that can do that. So you have this niche going for you. And then over here, more or less the same kind of idea, you know, with the Garchomp. This looks like the Wolfie team, but here we have a Kilowattrel instead, right? So this one is still competitive. This is Discharge. So you have Garchomp here, you have Toedscruel here that you can click Discharge next to. So, you know, makes sense. Then you have Air Slash and Tailwind at the same time. So it's nice to see Kilowattrel get some results over here. But the other team that I want to talk about is this one, the Drifblim team from Jack. 6th place, top 8. You know, this team, you know Aaron Cybertron is going to try and use this team, right? If Jack makes it public, which hopefully he will, because we would like to use it too. But look at this. This was on our list of underrated Pokemon. We made a video on that. This was like on our honorable mention list because we felt like it could do something if it was put on the right team. And it was Unburdened, Grassy Seed, and it makes a lot of sense, right? You get Tailwind, you can do Acrobatics, you are a Flying type, then you have this other stuff, Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap, so good support moves here. But how about this idea with Toxtricity, right? So you can do Tailwind, and then all of a sudden you can do Boom Burst, which is kind of funny in essence, right? So I think this makes a lot of sense. And then look at this. You could do this with Como because this is soundproof, right? So this is really, really cool. I love this building from Jack. So shout outs to them for doing really well. Look at this. Assault Vest Hydreigon yet again. We love that set. Then this is Life Orb, Volcarona, Bug Buzz, Heat Wave, Terra Blast, Terra Fairy, and then the Indeedee. You know, again, just clicking Expanding Force, setting the terrain for the Drifblim. And then Imprisoning. So you can't click Trick Room, you can't click Expanding Force. You shut down the Psy Spam. You get to do your own Psy Spam. And then Terra Ground as a niche tech here. I love this team. Jack, shout outs to you, my friend. So that was really cool team building with Drifblim. Then another one that we had on the underrated list was Gastrodon, right? And some Gastrodon had some decent play here. Like we got to see this from Sergio. Look at this. It's the P2 balance stuff. But we have Gastrodon over here with Clear Smog. So you get to remove buffs. You get to remove Intimidates at the same time. So Gastrodon looking really good here as your ground water type. Again, able to soak in the electro shots, the water damage. Again, Gastrodon, you know, also used as your utility against Dondozo stuff. Remove Intimidate buffs like we said. So a couple teams that did relatively well with it. So I like that out of Gastrodon. This one also makes sense here, you know, with Tyranitar and the Como here. So Gastrodon also having dual purpose here at the same time. This is Earth Power, Ice Beam, Clear Smog, Gastrodon, which is the set I would do if I had to use a Gastrodon stuff. Otherwise, you know, Clear Smog is still like the way to go. But yeah, I mean, again, Gastrodon, another one of those niche Pokemon that's always going to find its way in the format. Then the Politoed, right? We got to see that one earlier, right? So 7-3, again, just wanted to bring that back up here because there is a couple of Politoed users here. Like, even though these guys were 5-3, their teams are still like pretty cool. like we saw what we could do here, you know, with the Parasong stuff and the Gothitelle earlier. And that's really the way to use Politoed this format. Like if you're going to use this over the Pelipper, it's got to be able to do something that the Pelipper can't do. Otherwise, Pelipper is just a better weather setter, right? So you get Ice Beam coverage, and then of course you still have Weather Ball like Pelipper does. You can run specs on this, so I like that. Then as we go down here to some of these other 5-3 teams, so look at this one. Like this one has Haze Politoed, which is the other way that you can use Politoed besides you know, Parasong, which is again another move that Pelipper cannot do, but Haze also works here in that essence, right? So that's good for Dondozo. This one here on the Size Spam variant, again, more Haze. This is Sneasler, Indeedee, the Braviary stuff with Expanding Force. I understand it, of course, but this one is another one with the Gothitelle stuff. So, you know, if you had to use it, yeah, I think Paris Trap is the way to go if you had to use this with our Archaludon. So in that sense, okay, cool. But again, Pelipper will always have the edge. But again, that doesn't mean Politoed can't come out to play, because it did. All right, how about this one with Scyther? There was that Scyther team from Andres, right? So look at this. Technician Scyther. We saw this in Baltimore too, right? From VGC. But again, you're doing the P2 balance stuff, but now you have Scyther here with Technician. Again, you're a bulky Pokemon because you can have the Annihilape, but he put the Sash here. And then again, dual mid close combat feint. So, you know, this is an interesting set, you know, because close combat doesn't benefit from Technician, but that's still fine. Like, again, dual weaving is still, like, very strong. You still have feint. You're still fast, right? You know, with Scyther. So I still get it at the end of the day. How about Gengar also getting some play, right? So Gengar was used a little bit with that Volcarona team. But, again, another Pokemon that can get Haze. This is why Dondozo Tatsugiri struggles a little bit. There's so much things that gets Haze, right? So you're aggressive with Shadow Ball, which is great into like Goldengos and Dragapults, of course. Even though you don't get to outspeed Dragapult, you still have Sludge Bomb against Primarina and the other grass types. And then Curse Body is just punishing if you can just able to get this off. Here's the Gastrodon yet again, right? So, you know, this is still like pretty cool to see from Ross. And look, it's a Ninetales with Aurora Veil here, so giving the team all kinds of bulk, right? So I like this a lot. Shoutouts to Gengar here. There were a couple other Gengar teams too. But how about that Dudunsparce, right? Dudunsparce. Yeah, look at this. Like 7-4 from Hector. Look at this team, man. Maushold Ape, yes. Archaludon, okay, sure. No Pelipper, but you still have Sinistra, which is still fine. But then you have Dudunsparce Weakness Policy. What am I looking at here? Right? Boom Burst, Stored Power, Calm Mind. Okay, this is a set. And then you can just Terrapsychic yourself, I guess, beat up yourself, right? And then just go for the Stored Power, Calm Mind stuff. Like, oh my goodness, this is a team. Hector, I want to use this team. You know, 7-4, please make this available. This is kind of fun. And then we got to see it earlier, the Espeon stuff, the fast expanding force route, right, on that Archaludon Rain team. So this is pretty cool to see another one of those evolutions that gets to come out to play. So Espeon having you know, some use here. And nice to see that, right? You know, you don't really get to see too much evolutions come out to play besides Umbreon in a restricted format. But now people have experimented. They have seen Espeon's potential. I don't know about the others. Maybe that will, you know, come about later on. All right. I wanted to leave this one for last, but how about the Tyranitar Sand stuff? Like, was there any kind of good Tyranitar play? There was. Okay, and I wanted to highlight this one in particular, 7-4 from Finn Seploid, because if this looks familiar, that's because it is. This was our Clover Sand team. There was a difference here, and that I believe is in the Dragonite set. They opted to take out the Ice Spinner and just opt for the Stomping Tantrum instead, which again I understand. But overall, most of this is still the same Terra type, same moves. So nice to see Clover Sand make an appearance in day 2. So shout outs to Finn for doing a great job with the team. But overall, that's it. That's all the coverage that we have for Dortmund Regionals. Let me know what you thought of the regional overall. If you think we missed something, let us know. And if you're trying to do you know, another local coming up, a League Cup, or maybe just trying to prep for the next region that you're going to go to, which I think is Louisville in like 2 weeks. So if you need help for that or any of those things, sign up for coaching on the channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a team building session with us via Discord call. We get to build you a team. We get to build the team that you want the way you need it, and hopefully that will get you some results in your locals, right? We just featured 2 teams already that won locals already on the channel, right? So hopefully we can add more to that. but only you can do that if you sign up for coaching on our channel, right? You can join the Discord for free. That's always going to be free, right? And then from there, you get to message me once you do sign up, and then we'll coordinate a common time from there. All right, but that's it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out, and have a good one.